Mountains rising up from the sea level and reaching for the sky are not just a single biome, but they are known to be a complex mixture of different biomes. They are so large that the astronauts traveling in space can see them clearly. Mountains take up a long period of time to form as a result of the tremendous force in the Earth. The Earth's crust is made up of 6 huge slabs. These slabs fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. When 2 slabs of the Earth's crust bang into each other, it forces the land to push upwards. This upward movement of land gives rise to mountains. The greatest mountain ranges across the world have been formed as a result of the enormous collisions between continents. The mountains can be divided into 5 basic types, namely dome, fold, fault block, volcanic, and plateau mountains. These different types of mountains help in differentiating the physical characteristics of the mountains and also tell us how they were formed. When great amount of melted rock pushes its way up from under the earth without folding or faulting, it results in a rounded dome, and as a result, dome mountains are formed. Due to the dome rising above its surroundings, erosion occurs, and this erosion helps in the formation of valleys and peaks. The fold mountains were formed when 2 plates collided head-on and their edges crumpled, just as a piece of paper folds when pushed together. Himalayas in Asia, the Alps in Europe, and Andes in South America are examples of fold mountains. Fault block mountains are formed when cracks or fault in Earth's crust force some materials or blocks of rocks up and others down. The Earth fractures and blocks are stacked. The Sierra Nevada mountains in North America and the Harz mountains in Germany are examples of fault block mountains. When molten rock or magma deep within the earth erupts and piles upon the surface, volcanic mountains take shape. Mount St. Helens in North America and Mount Pinatubo in Philippines are examples of volcanic mountains. Plateau mountains, also called the erosion mountains, are described as large areas of high levels of flat land that are really plateaus and have worn down from erosion. These highlands are high mountainous regions that stretch as a single identity over wide areas without rising into sharp peaks. Mountains and highlands cover a vast area of earth and have a wide variety of plants and animal life. As one climbs high up on a mountain, the climate along the flora and fauna change accordingly. Himalayas are considered to be the Earth's highest mountains. People scaling the peaks here need to wear breathing apparatus due to the low air pressure at the peak. Surviving at the peak is not easy. As a result of this, no plants and animals have made it their home except the simplest life form. Mountains experience highest winds, and the blowing winds over mountain ranges can produce very unusual weather that can change drastically in minutes. Mountains are also known as the place of extremes, and one can find the world's wettest, coldest, and windiest places here. Surprisingly, some of them are even sun-drenched and dry. As we move up the mountains, the air temperature starts to fall, and for every 110 meters climb, there is a fall of 1 degree centigrade in the air temperature. As a result, the peaks of all highest mountains, even in tropics, are permanently covered with snow and ice. But altitude or the height from the sea level is not the only factor that controls the temperature on the mountains. It also depends on the location of the mountain on planet Earth. The tropical mountains will be warmer compared to a mountain in temperate or polar region, as the tropical region receives stronger sunlight than the poles. The slopes of the mountains also play an important role in deciding the temperature. If the slope is facing the sun during the hottest part of the day, then that part of the mountain slope will be warmer than the area which is in shade. The slopes that are warm will have bigger plants than the slopes that are cool and shady. During the day, the mountain valleys are hot, but as the night falls, they can become colder than the mountain tops. This is known as temperature inversion. This process takes place because cold air is heavier than the warm air. It flows and sinks downhill and collects in the valleys. That is why valleys in mountain areas become frosty and are filled with mist in the morning. Mountains and highlands receive more rainfall and are wetter than the lowlands. The explanation for this phenomenon is that the mountains stand as obstacles to the blowing winds. The only way the wind can get past the huge mountains is to blow over the top. Air is like a sponge, and as it passes over the oceans, it picks up water vapor. Warm air is better sponge than cold air and can hold more water vapor. As the air rises near mountains, it cools and water vapors condense into cloud droplets. These water droplets become large and eventually fall as raindrops or snow. The highland areas of Colombia, Hawaii, and Northeast India are home to 3 of the wettest places on Earth. From the month of April to October, warm and wet southwesterly winds blow over Bangladesh. Known as southwest monsoon. These warm winds absorb millions of tons of water from the ocean. As they travel up the southern slopes of Himalayas over Cherrapunji and other places, they cool and release water in torrents of rain. But rainfall can only reach a maximum at a certain height, and then it starts to decline. This is because by that time the air has released most of its water vapor. The height after which the rainfall starts to decline varies from mountain to mountain, and on an average, the rainfall starts declining above 10,000 feet. Even though mountains that are higher than 10,000 feet remain masked in cloud, they get very less rainfall. In contrast to this, the mountain range facing away from the prevailing wind direction is dry, because as the wind descends the mountain, it has already lost most of its moisture. In addition to this, the descending wind starts to warm up and increases its ability to hold water vapor. This drier area behind the mountain range is called rain shadow, or the leeward side of the mountain. The Sierra Nevada in California in USA casts a huge rain shadow, creating semi-desert conditions in the mountains and valleys of the Great Basin. If the prevailing wind blows across the land rather than sea, or the wind is cool before it reaches the mountains, then the opportunity to soak up water vapor is very less because the cool air is not an effective sponge. The Chilean Altiplano is a highland part of the Atacama Desert in Chile and is one of the driest areas on earth. Although the town of Calama is more than 8,000 feet above sea level, it never rains there. The reason for this kind of altiplano climate is the warm, wet winds. As the winds start coming down to the Chilean side of the mountains, the air becomes warmer and holds on to the little remaining water vapor. The Rocky Mountains run all the way from Alaska to New Mexico, forming a vast system of mountains and highlands in western North America. The pine forests, flower meadows, deserts, glaciers, and temperate rainforests are just a few diverse landscapes that exist in the Rocky Mountain range. Mount McKinley is the tallest mountain in this range. Close to this Alaskan Mount McKinley is Denali National Park, with large species of grizzly bears, wolves, tall sheep, and moose. Followed by the Alaskan ranges, the St. Elias mountain range. This coastal range has tall mountains and the world's most extensive ice fields. As the wind blows through the low slopes of mountains and lowland areas, it gets slowed down by rubbing against the ground. While they are higher up, they blast into mountains with full force. The wind is so fierce that people can be blown over by its force, making the mountain tops even scarier during storm. The mountain valleys provide a channel to the winds, making them even more powerful. The side facing away from the wind, called the lee side, is sheltered from the fierceness of the blowing wind. This provides an ideal place for vegetation and shelter for animals and people to live in. Snowfalls are also heavy on some mountains, but it does not snow on all mountains. For the snow to fall, the air has to be cold and moisture-laden. If the air is too warm, it will rain, and if the air is dry, it will neither rain nor snow. There is a natural line formed on the mountains called the snow line, above which the snow remains on the ground throughout the year. This level is higher in tropics than in temperate latitudes. Snow is great fun for thousands of people who travel to the mountains to ski, toboggan, or snowboard. On one hand, snow can be a great tourist spot. On the other hand, snow can also create problems by blocking roads and falling in huge slabs down the mountain slopes without warning. The snow falls at such a high speed that it flattens anything that comes in its path. These big snow slides are called avalanches. Houses and trees flatten under the weight of these avalanches, and many people have even lost their lives. If the weather warms up quickly in spring, the melting snow causes severe floods as it flows down in mountain valleys. There are some places in the mountains where there is not much of rainfall and sun rarely shines, while some mountain peaks and valleys lie at a height where clouds are formed. The slopes of such mountains remain shrouded in clouds most of the year. The plant life and the forests here are lush green and are called cloud forest. Water droplets in the clouds here do not fall as rain, but are deposited directly on the leaves of the plants. This is called horizontal precipitation or cloud stripping. Since the moisture is stripped from the clouds and condensed on the plants, making the forest always wet. At this altitude, the mountains poke out and are above the clouds most of the time. At this altitude, it is sunny throughout the day. The air here is thin and pollution-free, and the sun's radiation is very strong. Here, the mountain climbers have to cover themselves with sunscreen to avoid sunburns. Mountain areas have many clues to what the climate of the earth could have been and how it must have changed over 1,000 years. By measuring and dating piles of rubble around glaciers, scientists can figure out when the climate was colder or warmer. Cores of ice also provide frozen record of past concentration of gases and layers of volcanic dust. Stretching the entire length of South America, these are the Andes Mountains. This mountain range includes some of the highest and most barren mountains on the earth. One side of the range is barrier to the rains, while the other side is cloaked in lush rainforest. It runs for more than 8,000 kilometers through 7 countries in South America. Andes were formed when 2 plates of the Earth's crust pushed against each other. The westward plate overlapped the Nazca Plate, and the mountains have been growing since then. Some parts of the Andes are desert, and some parts are among the wettest places on the earth. High-rise mountains have also attracted human beings and have inspired them to develop cities on these mountains. La Paz is one such city located at about 11,900 feet above sea level. It is the capital of Bolivia and is one of the highest cities on the earth. It was discovered by the Spanish in 1548. This place has cool sunny winters and wet summers. A little close to this place is the Lake Titicaca. Legend says that the first Inca that rose from this lake was the founder of the Inca Empire. Some parts of the mountains are absolute deserts, while some are among the wettest places on the earth. Yet, the plants can survive in some of the most inhospitable habitats of the mountains, like the blazing volcanoes and wind-swept peaks of Alaska. Even the tallest mountains of the earth, the Himalayas, have plants holding on to their life. Different seasons give a totally contrasting look to the mountains. This is North America's Rocky Mountains. As winter arrives, it becomes one of the cruelest mountain range. The entire ground is carpeted by deep snow, and the temperature drops to such a low degree that it can take away the life of a person within minutes. This extreme environment does not allow the plants to take root. Even the hardiest animals find it difficult to survive and have to retreat to the lower slopes. Comes spring, and the face of the Rocky Mountains changes completely. The thick carpet of snow is replaced with flower-filled meadow. Alpine plants burst into bloom, and the whole landscape transforms into a colorful spectacle. There are plants that have amazing capability to grow and flourish, even in places that are covered in snow. Like these plants that grow on the Himalayas at a height of 22,000 feet. Even to survive and reproduce at such heights, Plants need regular supply of light, water, warmth and nutrients. Whereas on mountains, all these are not available for most part of the year. While some parts of the mountain receive regular rain, others are in rain shadow regions. Sometimes, even if there is water, plants are unable to use it since it is frozen. Pollination too is difficult since there are fewer insects on the mountains. The wind blowing here too is harsh, stopping the trees to grow tall. Yet, they manage to make optimum use of whatever is available. The huge mountains form various zones of plant life. These zones are no less than miniature biomes. Different types of plants grow at different heights on the mountains, and it is observed that plants start getting smaller in size as one goes higher on the mountains. After a certain height on the mountains, there are no trees to be found. Instead, the ground is filled with small shrubs and grasses. A natural line is formed between the dark green forest and pale grassland above, which is clearly visible from a distance. This natural dividing line is called the tree line. The tree line is higher in tropical regions than in cooler temperate parts of the world. This is because when we move from the poles towards the equator, the time duration during which the temperatures are warm for the plants to grow gets longer. So the trees of tropical region have a longer growing season for them to flourish. Above tree lines are zones of heat and moon. These zones appear just before the snow line starts to form. Beyond this zone, plant life stops and there is snow all year round on the ground. The further we move from the equator, the snow line keeps getting lower and lower. As we reach far north of Europe, North America and Asia, the tree line does not cross the sea level. There are no trees on the mountains, and the mountains are covered with Arctic tundra and barren expanse of snow and ice. Lower slopes of tropical mountains are home to bewildering array of big trees. These maze-like trees form the tropical forest. A little higher on the slopes of many tropical mountains is another zone that gets engulfed in cloud from late morning almost every day. Forests in this zone are called cloud forest. Here, even the tree trunks are covered with greenery, making the mountain cloud forests the greenest of all forests on planet Earth. It is amazing to know what makes the plants grow on tree trunks that gives the environment a flourishing green look. In cloud forest, small plants have to struggle a lot to grow as the clouds reduce the supply of sunlight to them. But these little plants have to reach the light to survive. So plants like epiphytes use the big trees to their advantage and convert them into high-rise platforms to reach the sky. This is how they do it. Birds eat the fruits of epiphytes plant and fly off to the top of the trees to rest. They expel the seeds of the plant in the form of droppings on the trees. In time, these seeds start to grow and their roots use the cracks in the trunks of huge trees to hold the plant. Once the epiphytes plants grow, they get all the water they need from the dampness in the clouds. These epiphyte plants flourish on the tree trunks and the cloud forest becomes a mesmerizing green canvas. Surviving mountain plants have to face another danger that challenges their existence. That is freezing at night, even during summer. But these mountain plants have an antifreeze mechanism that works wonders for them. In the Alps, Edelweiss has a coat of woolly hairs that protects its buds from killer frosts. The shape of the cushion plants protects them from cold. The stems of these plants are packed very tightly together that retains warmth. Its shape also preserves moisture. When the leaves die, they stay inside the cushion. When the leaves decay, they provide the living parts of the plant with precious nutrients. These slopes of Mount Alps present a pleasing picture during spring. The sunny meadows of the Alps' south-facing slopes are awash with flowers, and the musical tingling of cowbells can be heard everywhere. In winter, blizzards sweep across the mountains and cover the peaks with snow. The Alps were formed between 100 and 15 million years ago, when the landmass from the north and south moved together, gradually forcing thick layers of rock into huge folds of mountains. Some 2 million years ago, glaciers filled all the major valleys of mountain Alps. But since the end of the last ice age, they have retreated. And now, there are just 1,300 small glaciers. The scenic beauty of this mountain range is spellbinding. Mount Blanc, which means White Mountain in this range, is the highest of the alpine peaks. It is a little above half the height of Mount Everest. The Jungfrau Mountain is the tallest of the Alps and is surrounded by massive glaciers. The Slovenian Alps is inhabited with bat species and limestone caves. Sheltered by the mountains is Italy's large lake called Lake Garda, which has warm Mediterranean climate. This is Simplon Tunnel. This tunnel is 19.8 kilometers long and allows the trains to pass under the Alps between Italy and Switzerland. The Grand Paradiso National Park, together with Vinoy Park, is the largest protected area in Western Europe. Golden eagles and eagle owls are found in plenty in this region. Mountaineers consider Mount Eiger as the dramatic peak and one of the toughest climbs on the earth. Skiing too is a major sport in Zermatt, one of the best resorts in the world, situated under the towering Matterhorn. Like the Alps, mountains of planet Earth present a fascinating view and hold inside it a vast array of vegetation. And where there is abundant vegetation, there is bound to be other living organisms like the birds, animals, and of course, human beings. In the next episode of Mountains, we will study the lives of animals that inhabit the mountains across the world and also have a glimpse into the lives of people who have made these high-rise mountains their home.